What if we all have it wrong? Are we doing more harm to each other than Jesus really? You are listening to the Dirty Christian Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 117 of the Dirty Christian Podcast. I am your host. I'm Drew. I am the Dirty Christian, and we're going to talk about something that's really personal for me today, and it's a heavier topic to discuss because there are so many stigmas around the issue of Christianity and mental health, depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. So I want to be careful with how I discuss something like this, and instead of making this issue become something of an advice episode, I want it to be more my perspective, my dealings, and I want it to come from a personal place versus it being me giving advice or anything. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pastor. I'm a guy who loves Jesus with all my body, my mind, my heart, my soul, everything about me. And I'm also somebody that struggles with anxiety. And so before we jump into the podcast, I just want to talk about the website. It's thedirtychristian.com. That's where I blog. That's where articles are written. There's lots of resources there talking about anything from opinion pieces to biblical teachings, talking about tattoos, talking about Reformed theology, talking about just all kinds of stuff there. You can find these videos also on YouTube. You can find the podcast on YouTube. You can, obviously, if you're watching this live now, you're on Facebook, and so you're following here on Facebook, and then, of course, patreon.com if you want to support TDC in any sort of way, help with the hosting fees, the podcast fees, and stuff like that, then by all means, patreon.com/thedirtychristian. All right, so let's jump into this. I want to give you some background for me and stuff that's happened leading up to where I'm at today, and maybe kind of unpack some of this for you and stuff that I'm dealing with and why I say I'm dealing with anxiety and the type of stuff that I mean when I say anxiety. And I want to talk about my struggles with battling anxiety as a Christian because, as I said before, there's a lot of stigmas around the idea of a Christian, somebody that believes in Christ, that's been saved, that has been given the Holy Spirit, and that has the joy of the Lord. How does one like that deal with mental health in that respect? And as I go into this, my past, if I can kind of sum things up to where I think some of the key issues are for me in my past with my family and things that have happened along the way, some of the key things that I think have led to where I am today and why I'm struggling with what I'm struggling with. When I was around 12, my stepfather passed away, and during that time in my life, I was really, really close to him, very attached to him, in a very father-son way. He was more of kind of like, a man's man in my life at the time. My parents divorced when I was 8. 4 years had gone by. My mom remarried, and my stepfather was a guy who was just there, and barring all of the issues around my own dad and stuff like that, Bill was the guy that at that age in my life that was just kind of he was there, right? He was present. We were growing closer in the 3 years that he and my mom were married, and when about 3 years after they married, he passed away. He died of a heart attack suddenly when I was at my dad's house visiting during my 6 weeks in the summer. And that was my first introduction to death on that level. We had pets that we loved, pets that we were really close to that had died. Kind of some horrific things, with that. But never had some person in my life that I was close to, never had somebody died. And as a young kid, I was 12, my brother was 9. Really never fully grieved. Never fully went through a process of grief. Never was given the tools necessary to deal with that death. And because it happened so suddenly, it's not like he was sick and we had any idea that it was going to happen. It was literally a phone call. I remember my brother and I were playing Super Contra downstairs in our bedrooms, and my stepmother got the call. So all of that kind of planted a seed in me that that death was inevitable and that there was nothing that you could do to control it, or you couldn't be prepared for it. It just happened. And I never fully got a chance to grieve through that, to work, to process through that appropriately. I was thrown into, we were immediately brought, I don't even remember the trip, because we were about 4 hours away, different parts of Ohio. I don't remember the trip going home. I remember just bawling my eyes out the day of and the day afterward, and then coming home, seeing my mom in a place that I'd never seen her before, with being such a strong woman who had taken care of my brother and I, and really gone through some stuff. I'd never seen her so detached, and I know that she was trying, but she had just lost her husband, and she was the one who had to find him. Never, trying to be strong for her, trying to deal with that. I remember coming back home to our home, and sitting in the room that my stepfather passed, and just numb, numb and not really knowing how to deal with what I was feeling. And then the funeral and everything just kind of flying by, and then having to get on with life, right? Because when tragedy happens, you have to get on with life. And and I was in a Christian school at the time, although I wouldn't really say I wouldn't really say I fully believed in Jesus until much later in life. But I don't really remember anyone from the school rallying around to support us. I don't remember it, but it may have happened. I just don't remember it. Anyway, that's kind of the long and short of it there. When I grew up, and in old, later in life as an adult, I have, my father and I are much closer now. I love him very much. He's an amazing grandfather. We talk. He's a very sweet man. He loves his kids very much. I know he loves me. But it's, it's taken many, many years. I'm 37, so it's taken many, many years to get to that point of having some, of having a good relationship, in my opinion. Not to say that he hasn't tried, but, lots of things have happened. I joined the military, almost 19 years ago, joined the Navy, and, I consistently I remember as a kid dealing with stress from the divorce and things, and I would have really, really bad, vivid dreams, and I would have really low blood sugar, and it would cause these vivid dreams that I just couldn't get out of, and they were recurring dreams. I remember them very clearly. This dream of me pushing a shopping cart up this like spiraling tower, and I think my parents were up there, and I had to get up there, but I couldn't get up there, and I would wake up in cold sweats, and it would feel like a fever dream. I feel like my hands were small, or I couldn't feel them, and it would take like a warm bath and like some sugar to break me out of it. These crazy dreams that I would have, and I can't really place the timing of that. I can't remember if that was before or after my stepfather passed. I'm thinking before, but dealing with that, right? Growing up later, joining the Navy, and getting saved at 21, which was an amazing experience, but getting married then shortly after, and kind of becoming a dad, and then having these family responsibilities. I remember I would have these crippling thoughts of devastating things happening to my family. And I always thought, my mom always used to say, you just, it's just, you worry like you're like your family, you worry about a lot of things. 99% of the things that you worry about don't come true, and all of that. And I, she would reassure me that it's all right to deal with those type of stresses, but, never really got, to the bottom of that type of stuff. But as time went on and I got older, and we had more children, more people to be responsible for, the dreams and the fears of horrific things happening that I was not in control of, seemed to come and stem from that place of my stepfather passing suddenly. And then I would play out these scenarios in my head about these tragic events happening. If I was not home, which it didn't help, because being in the Navy, you're away from your house and you're away from your home a lot. You're away from family. You're really not in control of the stuff that happens when you're home. So I would have these moments of just thoughts that would lead from like just my house being robbed, or my kids drowning, or my my wife leaving me, and all of these things. But it wasn't just. I knew in my head that they were not like realistic thoughts, like are realistic possibilities. I knew that the things that I was battling with were just worries, and I would give those to the Lord, and I would pray over them, and ask God to help me deal with them, to take them away. And yeah, I just, as I found that as I was getting stressed in life, whether it was going on a deployment or coming home from a deployment, major events like a family move, or new duty station location, stuff like that, I would deal with these. It would start ramping up, and I would start losing sleep. I would start dreading going to sleep, because I knew that I would just lay there in bed thinking about things and not being able to fall asleep. And all of my sleep, even though I may have gotten a few hours of sleep at night, all of it was so super light that the slightest thing would jar me out of sleep, and then I would be stuck in bed just alone with my thoughts at night. And so coming into my final and last duty station in the Navy, where I'm at here, a year into it, looking at retirement, looking at the next few years projected out, which, knowing knowing deep down in my core that worrying about tomorrow is not for me, right? Jesus is very clear about not, you can't gain an inch to your height or length to your life by worrying. I try to I have those moments of thinking, planning for the future, to be prepared, right? To be prepared for what's going to come with a retirement and what life is going to look like outside of that. What kind of job am I going to have, and what kind of work will I do? But as I started experiencing these moments of just, again, going back to that crippling fear. I'd start having those dreams again, that I was, that something tragic was happening, or I'd lay in bed and I would just think about, somebody's going to break into my home, somebody's going to rob my house, or I go to work in the morning and somebody's going to break into my house when I'm not home. My kids are going to fall, off the trampoline, or their dressers are going to fall on them, or just, like I said, just really kind of insane, unrealistic things that I know are unrealistic, and yet they were still things I couldn't get out of, right? I could tell myself that they're not real, that they're not real fears, that they're just that it's just my mind being overactive, but they were getting to the point where I couldn't beat them. I couldn't beat those fears and that anxiety. And so I came to a point where I was losing a lot of sleep, feeling tired all the time. Just coming into work feeling just completely out of it. I don't even know how to describe, just feeling like I could fall asleep at any moment, at any given time, and just because I just was lacking sleep. And so I decided that and the stress of work and the stress of thinking about the future, and just things that I just felt like were not characteristic of me, not right, not good processes, not good thoughts. I decided that I needed to kind of seek some help. And I just wanted to know, like, is it me? Is it normal? That's always a question you want to ask somebody, because, as far as I was concerned, having recurring nightmares was totally normal. I grew up with it. No one ever told me different. No one ever told me what, that was not something normal. In fact, they have a medication that actually gets rid of nightmares. I didn't realize that was a thing. I just needed to seek someone to tell me, to ask what's, is there something wrong with me? Because here's the dilemma that I had was, is this just a physical issue, or is it solely a spiritual issue? Because a lot of people, especially Christians, really, really demonize any type of mental health, especially things like worry and anxiety, because the Bible is very clear on worrying, right? Worrying about tomorrow, worrying about your future, worrying about what you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep, what clothes you're going to wear. The Bible talks a lot about that type of thing, and talks about it as sin. And so my internal battle was, if I seek help outside of prayer and reading the Word, am I trying to suppress something? Am I being disobedient to the Lord am I sinning by seeking outside help? You know, am I sinning by not just putting off sin, or putting off those worries and fears and giving them to the Lord when I feel like I was doing that? And it's interesting because we were reading this series in our life group. It's called Respectable Sins, and it's a really good book. It deals with a lot of the things that Christians commonly deal with that we don't really look at as sin. Anxiety being one of them, ungodliness, gossip. I mean, it just talks about all kinds of things that we don't typically discuss in the church. Anxiety, though, when we got to this topic, it was very interesting, and I was concerned about this because I was not sure what I was going to hear, and I was worried that, I know I say worried, but I was worried that I would hear something like, you know, it's just spiritual, period, and if you're dealing with anxiety, Tony, I'll get you the name of that author shortly. I think you can Google it, though. It's just called Respectable Sins. It's a study guide and book. It's pretty good. But worrying when I got to that subject that, you know, I was going to feel worse about myself, right? Like, how dare I go outside of the Lord to get some sort of assistance? How dare I consider medication or counseling, you know, outside of just putting off that sin, putting off that worry. And so we read the topic, and there's a book by John MacArthur too called Anxious for Nothing. I started reading through that. And then I started to seek help from friends and people that I trust in the church that are elders and pastors. I have lots of friends in a couple groups that I'm in, and I just asked. I said, you know, look, I don't want to be naive about this. What do you guys think about depression and anxiety versus spiritual things and sin? And what are your experiences? And the response was actually very good. It was, you know, yes, there is a spiritual aspect of that. And I think the way that I've concluded, and I've talked to Rachel about this for hours, you know, and the way that I've come to conclude my stance and position on this is that sin in general, our sin nature, being born in this flesh, you know, the flesh that eventually dies one day, right? It eventually, everybody, you know, God has set and appointed a day for, you know, the days of our lives to be numbered. He knows the day that we die. So death is inevitable. And we deal with sickness. We deal with colds and flus. We deal with body aches and pains and sadness and all different types of things. We deal with because of the fall and because of what happened when sin entered into the world. God's creation became not unholy. It became imperfect, right? We are imperfect human beings that are fallible, that are injured, that are messed up and sinful, right? So there's the sin action and there's the sin noun, and we deal with these things because of sin. As a result of it, we deal with imperfections. We deal with all of those things. And if my body is prone to this fear and worry, then and there is some sort of a medicine that can help to ease that fear and worry, to make it to where it's not crippling, to make it to where it's not debilitating for me, then it's no different than a person who has a migraine taking medicine, a person that has a body ache or pain taking medicine to get themselves better. and to be able to continue with life with some peace of mind physically. Not the peace that surpasses understanding, not that, but some ability to focus and to be able to walk through life not feeling completely incapable of taking on each day. And that's where I was at, was going into the day. I was being crippled by my thoughts. If it was the night before going to work, I was just stressing just over and over and over again about what was going to happen at work, the conversations or the job, the load of work that was there, the responsibilities, there was so much stuff that clouded my brain and caused me to be just crippled by the thoughts. So now, before about a week ago, I want you guys to get to where I'm at today. Because about a week ago, I came to my wife and I told her, I said, Rach, I'm going to stop drinking during the week. Right? That was the initial conversation. I said, babe, I've taken to drinking to cope with the anxieties, to suppress the thoughts, and to get me to not care as much about what's going on in my life right now. And so what started for me as a liberty in Christ to enjoy a glass or a beer led to, up until the point of last week, I was drinking every single day. It wasn't a whole lot. I wasn't getting drunk. I wasn't abusing it. I wasn't showing up to work drunk or late. I wasn't drinking at work. I wasn't drinking during the day. None of that. So I want to be clear that what I believe I caught at the right time was the fact that I was relying very heavily on alcohol to give me the peace of mind that I needed to face each day. So when I would get home from work, after dinner, sitting watching TV or online or playing with my kids, I would have a drink. And it got to the point that I was doing it every single day. And I was drinking, more, I think probably more than a person that enjoys it just socially, and probably my ability or the amount that I would drink, even though to me was of little effect, would probably have been of great effect to other people. So I had built up quite a tolerance. But again, I want to be transparent here. I was not drinking during the day. I was not drinking. In private. I wasn't hiding it. And it wasn't so much that it affected me coming to work or showing up to work or anything like that. That was never the issue. The issue, because it would be at nighttime and I was home and I didn't have anything to do that night. I would even be, before, if I was gonna drink that night, if we had like life group or youth group or something, I was not drinking then. I would, especially if I had to go like take the kids to youth group or something like that, right? I wouldn't drink then. But I would, when I got home and I was in for the night, that's when I would drink. So I concluded that, with Rachel, and it just dawned on me, especially when she was gone, that, this has just gotten to be too much. This has gotten to be, a point where it's really become a thing that I need. And I'm not okay with it. I know it's not all right. I don't want to be dependent on it. And that was kind of the linchpin that really got me to realize that my drinking was to fix something going on here in my head, right? My drinking was something to help me cope with the day-to-day stresses and the stuff going on. And the problem with the drinking is that it's a depressant, right? So it doesn't help you. It may cover up an issue. It may help you to deal with a thought or a fear in that moment. But when you wake up, it's still there. The fears are still there. The anxiety is still there. The day is still there. You still have to go do things, right? You still have to go take care of family. You still have to go take care of yourself, do your job, all those things. So it was never a permanent solution. It was never a long-term solution. It was a very, very like a Band-Aid on a missing limb type situation. So by the grace of God, He gave me the wisdom to realize that was too much, and that I needed to stop, and so I did, and it's been since last Sunday, I believe, that I've had anything to drink. I feel very good. I'm not dealing with. I didn't deal with haven't had withdrawal. I haven't had anything like that. I've been able to cope, and I'm very grateful for that. I do feel really good. But in that also, I've been prescribed some antidepressant anxiety medication, which consequently, I'm not allowed to drink when I take it anyway. So it kind of works out in accountability. Oh, but before that, I want to make sure that I mention that, even before that, one of the recommendations from one of my pastor friends was to become accountable with one of the elders in the church. And so one of the elders actually attends my life group. I reached out to him. I said, "Hey man, I want to stop drinking during the week." And I told him, "Can you be accountable with me? Will you check up on me? Can we talk about it?" And he said yes. So that was put into place. That was put into place even before I started taking the crazy meds, and now I have 2 steps of account. Well, 3 really. My wife, the elder, and the medication that doesn't allow me to drink anyway. So that part is kind of done with, and I'm very thankful for that. But that's where I am today. I'm taking medication. After prayer and consideration and counseling through friends and other believers, I'm giving this part a shot to hope that it works. I'm very hopeful. I feel already, even early on in the stage, they say it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to really kind of kick in and get you feeling better. But I already feel better. And maybe it's just the fact that I haven't been drinking, which is very likely. But I feel better, and I'm very grateful to the Lord for showing me this. And I'm hoping that in this process, as I am transparent with you guys, because you guys have taken the time out of your lives to follow me, to keep up with me, to know what's going on with me, I'm hoping that I can be some sort of example, or at least an encouragement, that if you are dealing with anything similar to what I've gone through, if you are having any of the type of stuff that I've spoken about and you've not dealt with it, I say the first place to go is to your pastors and elders and discuss what's going on with you, with them, and allow them to speak into your life and give advice. Allow them to be praying for you. Find somebody to be accountable with that can be someone that will pray for you and pray with you. It's been amazing to see the amount of support from church friends and family that have kind of rallied around and prayed for me and just checked on me, asked how I'm doing. It's been really good to have that type of support. And so with you guys, again, I've never felt like I've ever had to hide anything that I've gone through or that I struggle with. You guys followed me through my pornography addiction. You guys followed me through, getting rid of that and really battling and dealing with that. You guys were there when I struggled and when I gave it up and when I struggled again. So I feel like I need to be transparent with the people that do follow me. I don't feel like I have anything to hide or anything to be ashamed or embarrassed about. And I know that there will be people out there who may not fully agree with with the steps that I've taken to get help. There'll probably be a good amount of people that don't agree with the medicinal path or a counseling path, and that look at anxiety and depression and stuff like that as a sin. And quite frankly, I get it because I've been there. But I would say, 10, 15 years ago in society, mental health was not as open and honest. It was not as accepted. And there was a lot of stuff about mental health that was very taboo and very... I look at it the same way like a lot of Christians look at like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like there was a lot of misinformation and a lot of fanaticism about any type of mental health help. And today, 15, 20 years later, there's much more research. There's much more education on the issue. And I don't believe that mental health is as damning as a lot of people have thought it was in the past. And sure, again, I know that there will be people out there that disagree, that may really have a problem with me now admitting this stuff, but through counseling and prayer, this is the conclusion that I've come to. And the one funny kind of just on a whim thought that I had was if medication can get me to stop worrying, that I can focus on serving the Lord, how is that bad? I mean, if I have a migraine headache and I take an Excedrin and it stops my migraine and it allows me to focus on my life and to move on that day, how is medicine to help me to stop crippling worry and fear? How is that the same thing as worrying about the food that you're going to eat or the clothes that you're going to have? I really feel like, scripturally speaking, the type of worry that Jesus spoke about was the worry that comes from a place of control. It comes from a place of the heart that says, I'm in control of something and God is not. And so I'm not willing to give the Lord my problems. And as plenty of people have said in the comments, God has made doctors. Like, God gave people that profession and gave them the intelligence to create medicine and help people to deal with ailments. And though anxiety and worry at the clinical level is a result of the downfall of humanity from the garden, there are ways to get my brain to start working the way it should, to create the serotonin that it needs to create in order for me to focus on my life, to not be devastated every day that I wake up, and not to live in fear of everything that could happen in my life, even knowing that it's a ridiculous fear, right? So that's my battle with anxiety. That's where I'm at. I hope that this has been helpful for some of you guys. I hope you know that you're not alone. We're all imperfect people with imperfect problems, that we have a perfect God who is there in order to set us right, to sanctify us through the washing of the Word. We come to Jesus imperfect, and it's through His perfection and His righteousness that we are made perfect in the eyes of God, even though flawed on the earth, still going to die, still going to get sick. We have a God who took our place, who paid our price on the cross, that we can have eternal life because of what he did. So that's my journey. That's what I got. I love you guys. Stick around for the after show if you guys want to talk in the comments. If you have questions or concerns, you want to ask questions or say something, I will read your comments and questions here after I end the show. I love you guys. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day. Dirty Christian, I'm out.